director of the Willehalm Institute for Anthroposophy, as Grail Research, Royal Art and Social Organics. And I'm standing here in front of this beautiful Christmas tree on the Beursplein, the Stock Exchange Square in the center of Amsterdam. 2 days ago, on the day before Christmas, I stood here and presented in the framework of the Re-evangelizing of the Low Countries through the New Christianity, the Dutch book, The Jezus Mysteries, Rudolf Steiner's Gospel Chronology and the Christ Prophecy of Zarathustra by the Swiss Grail researcher Werner Goethe, who lived from 1909 to 1979, and who is the author of the book How the Grail Sites Were Found, Wolfram von Eschenbach as a historian. This is the book that I presented, of course, in Dutch. In Dutch it's called the Jezus Mysteries. And this is the book How the Grail Sites Were Found, Wolfram von Eschenbach as a historian. And this is a Grail trilogy, of which this book is the third part, which is the larger part. It's the first 4 chapters of the third book, which is called in German Erwachen an Goethe, and in English Awakening to Goethe. It's a mystery book. Also the author is a mystery which has to be revealed. Okay. I recited the text of the flyer, which I had pasted on the woodwork underneath this Christmas tree, with the title Christmas Celebration, and which can be seen on my Robert Kelder YouTube channel, and which I will now read in English translation on this second day of Christmas, Boxing Day, and start with a quote from the Gospel of Luke. Glory to God on high and peace on earth among people of good will. Luke 2:14-15. On December 25th and 26th, we celebrate the birth of Jesus. Yes, very good. But which one? Which Jesus? Because, as may be known, the New Testament speaks namely of the birth of 2 different Jesus children with 2 different genealogies at 2 different times. Thus, the Gospel of Matthew begins with the descent of Jesus through King Solomon, son of David, to the son of Abraham, and tells us of the birth of Jesus to parents named Mary and Joseph during the reign of King Herod in a house in Bethlehem, not in a stable. There he was worshipped by the 3 kings or magi from the east, who had seen his star rise and who presented him with gold, frankincense, and myrrh. In this book, the chapter on Wolfram's astronomy, the author develops how the Star of Bethlehem was recurring in Switzerland, in Arlesheim, during the kingship of Portugal. You have to read it to really get to it. Okay. On the other hand, the Gospel of Luke also speaks of the birth of not the Jesus in Bethlehem, also to parents named Mary and Joseph, pardon me, who had to leave their birthplace Nazareth because of a census and travel to Bethlehem. Their child is born not in a house, as I already said, but in a manger, in a stall, where he is worshipped by the shepherds from the field. Here there is no mention of the 3 kings, by the flight to Egypt or the massacre of the innocents. And in the family tree indicated by Luke 3, this Jesus is not descended from King Solomon, but from the priest Nathan as the son of David through to the Son of God. Now, clear my throat. Now, does the Bible contradict itself? No. For these contradictions, so-called, between the two nativities as described by Matthew and Luke, were first reconciled on the basis of the eternal so-called fifth gospel, which was first made known to the world in 1913 in Oslo, the capital of Norway, by Rudolf Steiner, who lived from 1861 to 1925, who is the founder of Anthroposophy, which he also called Science of the Grail. In this fifth gospel, it is explained how the older Master Jesus united with the 12-year-old Luke Jesus during the latter's presentation in the temple in Jerusalem. See the title page of Jesus Mysteries? Of course, this here, the title page, where you see the two children in the temple of Jerusalem. This is the Jesus of Luke, and this is the Jesus of Matthew. They united themselves to become the Jesus of Nazareth as we know it. Theology calls this metempsychose, which is largely rejected. This Jesus of Nazareth then became the physical vehicle or the temple of God, in which 18 years later, at the baptism by John in the Jordan, the cosmic Christ being, the I am that I am, at the age of about 30, incarnated for his 3¼ years of his ministry on earth. Theology calls this adaptionism. By that they mean that Jesus of Nazareth, so-called, adapted the cosmic Christ being into his physical being, and which he offered to Christ by leaving his I being for the I of humanity. This adoptionism is also rejected by both the Catholic and the Protestant Church, and is called a heresy. The Gospel of Luke marks this moment by telling us that a voice from God from heaven was heard saying, "This is my beloved Son, today I have conceived him." This was therefore not yet the birth of Christ, but his conception. His actual birth took place only after his crucifixion and his resurrection on Friday, April 3rd, 33, as the spirit of the earth and the eye of humanity, and the earth became his body. Therefore, if we really want to celebrate the birth of Christ, this should be done on April 3rd. And that is why Rudolf Steiner began in 1912 a calendar reform by beginning the calendar from that day on, this April the 3rd, and in which, in this sense, we are now in the year 1992, Anno Domino, after the birth of Christ. And in 2033, we will be celebrating his 2000th birthday. Now, all of this and more is explained in the book Jesus Mysteries, which will soon be available in English as a PDF file, and that can be ordered by sending an email to the Willehalm Institute, Willehalm at Gmail. Willehalm is spelled WILLEHALM at gmail.com. The first chapter of this book can be found on my blog, http Willehalm Institute blogspot.com under the title The Vero Anno on the Nativity of Jesus Christ by Werner Groen. Okay, that was my free translation of this talk I held here 2 days ago. Thank you for listening, and maybe we see each other in another time.